Good evening. I'm Vince Palmieri, President and founder of Asian Pacific Community Awareness, and I'm here this evening with a gentleman named Kelly Quinn, who's running for Assembly District 5. Kelly, say hello to our viewers.
Good evening. I'm Kelly Quinn. I'm running for Assembly District 5.
Kelly, before we go on with some questions, could you just give a brief description of what an assembly person does?
So for the state legislature, there's two houses. Both of them are representing the people of their districts. On the assembly side, there's 42 seats. On the Senate side, there's 21 seats. And between the 63 representatives, we make up the Nevada state legislature.
And I'd like to ask, what made you decide to run?
The last cycle, I ran for the same seat. And back then, it was more the government overreach, especially during the pandemic and how things were coming about from that. I work in the prison system. I'm a correctional officer there, and some of the things that were happening in our emergency response in our prison system throughout our whole state, and being shut down for as long as it was with the restrictions that we had, that's what really got me thinking about running. And then I found out there were 19 seats that were going unopposed. And I said, somebody's got to step up and do something about that. So that's what got me first thinking about running. And I ran the last cycle. I did not win. This cycle, right after the last election, we went straight from the election into the legislative session. And we were there just about every day of the legislative session and still working, evaluating bills, writing opinions, sending information up, and we were still very active during that process. As soon as the session was done, we did some debriefs with different groups and then started into the next campaign. This cycle is more about the education, because what happened the last legislative session in some regards is just ridiculous and disgusting. So we need to get back into the legislature, repeal some of the stuff that just happened, and get control of our education system again. And that's my first motivation, is education. After that's going to be the public safety side of it, and making our streets safe again, and getting our economy back on track again. Our gas prices have gone up, doubled since the last election cycle, and the food inflation's done the same thing. But now Nevada legislature is somewhat limited on what we can do with inflation, but we can certainly have some headway in that. So really it's the education, the public safety, and our economy, and getting our state back on track again.
So what do you think you can bring to the table that other candidates cannot bring?
I've got some previous experience as a staffer, and I've worked several sessions of legislature, actually in the halls of legislature, working on different bills. I worked as a regulator for the state and the health division and the health district as well. And what I would like to do, my first priority, is some of the classroom obscenity laws in Nevada, and repealing some of the exclusions under the obscenity laws. And there's a whole process for that I can get into in much further detail if you'd like, but that's the first priority, is getting that repealed to get some of the obscenity out of our classroom, getting the sexuality of our kids out of the classroom. Teach about sex, not how to have sex. The drugs, same thing. Teach about drugs, not how to do drugs, and making our community safe again and our classroom safe again as well.
You and I had a brief conversation before about an overview of the CCSD, because I agree with you. Education is the foundation of our society.
Absolutely. And
we need to stop at the bottom, and we need to overturn a lot of things that have been going on in CCD. One thing we mentioned is that the legislator has the power to control the purse. What would you do to control the crazy spending of CCSD? I remember when they first passed I'm going to call it the pot law. 25 million was supposed to go to the school. Where is that?
Good question. So when that legislation went through and they set up the committee for that, the board that was set up really didn't have much experience in being a board. Now they've revamped that a little bit to where they've got some members that were part of gaming control, the gaming control board. Some of the retirees are now sitting on that board, and that is helping tremendously. And there's more organization coming about from that. How the money is handled from that entire industry is changing as well. So we should be seeing more of that targeted towards the school. The problem with it is this money has been absorbed at the administrative level. We need to have safeguards in place that it gets down to the classroom and down to the student. The money, the tax dollar that's generated, needs to follow the student as well. And we need to have the school choice. AB 400 was one of Governor Lombardo's bills last cycle that got gutted by the time it was done, but there was school choice involved with that. There was the scholarships involved with that. Again, school choice got gutted out of it. We need to put the school choice back in so that parents have the control of where their students go.
I'd like you to pick one of the problems that you think is most important to deal with, and then explain to us how you would deal with it and solve it.
Again, number one is the obscenity laws in Nevada. It's NRS 201 if anybody chooses to read it, but the obscenity laws talk about what obscenity is, the materials, kind of what that truly means. It's defined in statute. But there's an exclusion clause in there that excludes schools, universities, libraries, and museums. So some of these, the drag queen shows as an example that you see in the libraries. Well, there's a reason they're done in the library. They're excluded from it. If those were done in a park or some other facility other than those, they could be arrested under the obscenity laws. So as long as they keep it in the schools and in the libraries, they're covered. So that's one of my first priorities, is repealing that exemption out of there. There's plenty of other protections in that same chapter to cover the teaching of anatomy, physiology, health classes, things like that. So we need to repeal that part of it. So again, we can start teaching kids about science, anatomy and physiology, health, etc., and stop teaching them how to have sex, but teaching them about sex.
So how would you go about to repeal this?
Write the bill draft request to repeal that simple section in the NRS. And it should be an easy thing to get through, bipartisan on both sides.
Well, yeah, it should be bipartisan.
Yes.
And what would be another issue that you're really concerned about?
Again, in the schools, it's putting the provisions that were in AB 400 back into it to allow for the school choice and having the dollar follow the students.
Could you explain to some of our viewers what AB 400 is?
That was one of Governor Lombardo's bills that he proposed last cycle. That, again, it was the school choice bill, and it had many different sections in there, and it pretty much became a bill for the teacher union, and everything else was gutted out of it, in my opinion. But we could put school choice back in. We could put the what is it, opportunity scholarships back in. They found other funding sources after it was gutted out, so Lombardo did save the scholarship part of that, and we can put that back in to get it to the students, not to be absorbed at the administrative level, but keeping it at the students. And there's many sections of that bill that we can pick up again, and I'm sure Lombardo's going to do the same thing this next cycle.
Yeah.
So,
what would you say is the main problem with keeping good teachers in our system?
The control of the classroom. Talked to numerous teachers. The number one complaint is they can't get control of the classroom. The restorative justice programs they have in the schools, they can't kick a disruptive student out of the classroom. Therefore, it disrupts the entire classroom, and everybody's being harmed by it. So Restorative justice, there was a move this last session to modify that a little bit, to take some of the impact away. We need to put that back in. Give the teachers the ability to control their classroom. Now, right now, it all lies on the principals within the schools, but the principals aren't necessarily supporting the teachers. Some of them are, some of them aren't. But we need to give the teacher that ability. And the money needs to make it down to the classroom also. And we need to reward good teachers for being good teachers. And the teachers that don't want to teach and just come in and push a button on the play button, we need to have them move on.
I have one last question, and this is an issue I think the entire country is talking about, and is our number one issue, is illegal immigration. Can you tell us briefly what the effect of illegal immigration has on the Clark County School District?
Well, the effect here is our illegal population has gone up tremendously, and all of the government services are going to be affected by that. The schools are going to be affected. The healthcare is going to be affected. Law enforcement is going to be affected. We have become a major hub for human trafficking, including the sex traffic industry, the drug trafficking industry. We see a lot of that coming right across the border, coming up the 15 corridor. Much of it stops off here for a bit. It continues up north into northern Utah, and it actually disperses from northern Utah across the whole country. But it comes right through here. So, but the effect on our own communities, you can see the homeless community, or the homeless camps, popping up all over the city. And much of that's a result of what's going on. And much of the legislation that went through this last cycle is catering to that. So we just keep, in essence, throwing more money at it and not getting a return. You know, there's no tax base that comes from that.
Well, yeah, there's some people that feel throwing money at a problem resolves it, and we know that that doesn't happen.
Now, just to be clear, I'm all for immigration, but legal immigration. Just having the open borders where it's a free-for-all, I don't support that at all.
In closing, what message would you like to leave for our viewers?
I think we need to be involved. That's number one. Find out who your representatives are, who's running. If you have incumbent representatives there, look at their voting record last cycle. Go to the legislative website, leg.state.nve.us. Go to the website, you can look at their voting history on there, see what they've done to harm our community, see what they've done to help our community. Look at the candidates that are running against them. And if they're currently in office, how can you help support them? The ones that are running against the bad ones, then learn how you can support them. For me, if you can help door knock and get my message out, if you can help make phone calls, certainly financial. Last cycle I ran very little on the money side of it. I was outspent 10-1, and I lost by a very small margin. So if we can up that just a little bit this cycle, that'll help tremendously. My contact information, you can check me out for Assembly District 5 with quinnfornv.com. It's QUINNFORNV.com. You can email me at the same, it's just kelly@quinnfornv.com, or you can call me. My cell phone, everything's on the website as well. So call me, text me. Just be aware that I'm still working as a correctional officer. I'm a peace officer with the Nevada Department of Corrections, so I may be away from my phone for several hours out of the day because I can't take my phone in.
Well, Kelly, thank you very much for taking the time to let our viewers know who you are and what you're about. Really appreciate it, and we wish you a lot of luck, and let's hope that this time you get to the finish line.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.